No one saw this coming. A billionaire from Oman has just landed in Burkina Faso, not to dictate terms, not to exploit, but to buy gold directly from Ibrahim Traoré. This shocking move has shaken global markets and left the West in panic, as Africa begins to trade on its own terms. If this story shook you, drop your thoughts in the comments and share it with the world. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Faso Histories for more untold truths of Africa's rise. The runway outside Ouagadougou was hotter than fire under the midday sun when a sleek silver private jet descended from the skies, its engines humming like a warning to the old order of global trade. This was no ordinary flight. It carried one of Oman's most powerful billionaires, a man whose influence stretched across oil fields, gold markets, and international finance. But today, his destination was not Europe, not America, but Burkina Faso, a land that had long been dismissed as poor despite sitting on immense natural riches. Soldiers in crisp uniforms lined the tarmac, their eyes sharp with discipline as armored vehicles stood guard, signaling the significance of what was about to unfold. Local workers and villagers gathered at a distance, whispering in amazement, their eyes fixed on the rare sight of foreign wealth arriving not to dictate, but to negotiate. For decades, Burkina Faso's gold had been taken away cheaply, refined in foreign lands, and resold at prices that brought no benefit to its people. Generations had watched their resources vanish while their villages remained trapped in poverty. But this landing was different. It was not about aid tied to conditions or loans designed to enslave. It was about a direct business deal, raw gold for real value, nation to nation. As the jet's doors opened and the Omani billionaire stepped out in a flowing white robe and gold-trimmed headscarf, cameras clicked, soldiers saluted, and a hush fell across the airstrip. The moment carried weight beyond commerce. It was history in motion. People whispered Ibrahim Traoré's name, for they knew it was his vision that had made this possible. To them, the arrival of this man was not just a deal in gold. It was the first sign that Burkina Faso was finally standing tall, ready to claim its place in the world. As the Omani billionaire walked down the red-carpeted steps of his jet, the energy around the airstrip shifted from surprise to pride. At the end of the reception line stood Captain Ibrahim Traoré, dressed in his military uniform, his posture as firm as the will of his people. When the two men shook hands, it was more than a gesture. It was the collision of two worlds, one built on wealth and the other on resilience, now united by shared interests. Cameras captured the moment, but what they could not capture was the deeper meaning. This was not charity, not dependency, but a business agreement forged on equal ground. The billionaire smiled as he was escorted to a convoy of black SUVs waiting to take him into the city, passing through streets where people lined up, waving Burkinabe flags and cheering for their leader. The whispers grew louder in the crowd. For the first time, our gold will bring wealth home. Inside the official palace, away from the noise, a grand table was prepared, documents spread across polished wood, and armed guards watched silently from every corner. Negotiations began not with arrogance, but with respect. The Omani guests spoke of partnership, of purchasing gold directly, bypassing the middlemen who had drained Africa for centuries. Traore listened carefully. Every word weighed against the sacrifices of his people, and then made it clear. This gold is not for exploitation. It is for the future of our children. For the first time in Burkina Faso's modern history, its leader was not begging foreign powers for aid. He was striking a deal that placed his nation's dignity at the center. Outside, the city buzzed with hope as rumors spread that billions could flow into the country's treasury. The meeting was more than business. It was the beginning of a revolution in how Africa dealt with its own wealth. The next morning, as the sun rose over Ouagadougou, the true weight of the deal began to unfold. Word spread quickly that the Omani billionaire had not come to take the gold away at unfair prices like others before him, but to pay in full, directly to the Burkinabe government, with terms that would empower the nation rather than strip it. For decades, Burkina Faso's gold had flowed quietly out of the country through Western corporations, leaving behind little more than empty mines and poor villages. But this time was different. Traore had insisted on full transparency. No hidden contracts, no colonial-style conditions, no debt traps. The deal meant that billions would now stay within the country, building schools, hospitals, and infrastructure instead of fattening foreign banks. In the capital, crowds filled the streets, chanting Traore's name, their faith in him stronger than ever before. Markets buzzed with talk of opportunity, while farmers in remote villages discussed what it might mean for their children to finally have access to clean water and electricity. The billionaire himself was struck by the passion of the people. He saw not just a nation selling gold, but a nation reclaiming its destiny. For him, it was profit, but for Burkina Faso, it was liberation. Across Africa, leaders watched closely, some with admiration, others with unease, knowing that if Burkina Faso succeeded, their own people would demand the same. Western capitals, too, were unsettled. The idea that an African nation could cut direct deals on its own terms, without their approval, was seen as dangerous, even rebellious. Yet for Traore, this was only the beginning. The gold deal was not just about wealth. It was about rewriting the rules of Africa's place in the world. Burkina Faso was no longer a beggar. It was a partner. As the gold deal echoed across the globe, the reaction was immediate and explosive. Western analysts filled television screens with warnings of economic instability and dangerous partnerships. But beneath their polished words was a deep sense of fear. For years, they had relied on Africa's resources flowing quietly into their economies at bargain prices. But Traore had just proven that Africa could flip the script. The Omani Billionaire's move showed that new alliances could be forged outside of Western approval, and this was a threat more dangerous than any weapon. In Washington, Paris, and London, emergency meetings were held, with officials debating sanctions, propaganda campaigns, and strategies to discredit Traore. But in Burkina Faso, the people saw the truth. For the first time, their gold was being valued at its real worth. Young men spoke of building businesses instead of fleeing abroad. Women imagined schools and hospitals rising where none had stood before, and elders whispered that their sacrifices had not been in vain. The streets of Ouagadougou turned into symbols of celebration, with murals of Traore painted on walls, his name sung in markets and villages. Yet Traore knew victory came with danger. Foreign powers would not sit quietly while their grip weakened. Already, intelligence reports warned of plots, hidden funding for opposition groups, and pressure on neighboring countries to turn against Burkina Faso. Still, his resolve never wavered. Standing before a crowd in the capital, he declared, "We will not sell our future for scraps. We will trade with dignity, and Africa will rise with us." His words were met with thunderous applause that shook the city. The gold deal was no longer just business. It had become a spark, igniting a fire of defiance across the continent, a fire that no outside force could easily extinguish. The sun set over Ouagadougou in hues of gold, as if the land itself was blessing the new chapter unfolding. The Omani Billionaire's deal was only the beginning, but its impact had already spread far beyond Burkina Faso. In Mali, Niger, and Guinea, leaders watched closely, inspired to rethink their own resource deals. Across Africa, whispers turned into bold conversations. If Burkina Faso can do it, so can we. Western powers, unsettled and angry, tried to dismiss the move as reckless. But their words fell flat in a world where images of Traore shaking hands with a billionaire had already gone viral. For the ordinary Burkinabe, the change was more than symbolic, it was tangible. Roads were being planned, schools funded, and local industries given life from the promise of fair trade. For once, the gold that had cursed them for centuries was now becoming a tool of empowerment. Traore, though celebrated, remained grounded. In his eyes, the deal was not about wealth, but about sovereignty. He reminded his people that real strength lay not in gold alone, but in unity, dignity, and the courage to defy those who wanted Africa to stay broken. His voice carried across the continent. Africa is not poor. It has been robbed. That time ends now. The crowd erupted, not just in Burkina Faso, but across borders, where millions tuned in, feeling the same fire in their hearts. The deal with Oman had set history in motion, a bold statement that Africa would no longer wait for permission to define its destiny. As night fell, the people of Burkina Faso stood taller, their nation no longer a silent victim, but a beacon of defiance. What began with one handshake had become the dawn of a revolution, and the world would never be the same again.